same time, a powerful American financial tycoon was discussing Jack. Although Jack had accepted their assignment, he had killed a man in Munich, causing them to worry that he might not complete the assassination mission. A woman explained that while she understood time was running out, it would be impossible to find a hitman more skilled than Jack. Just then, new information arrived. Jack had killed the man because he had refused to pay him for a previous hit. Upon hearing this, the tycoon suddenly changed his view of Jack. Jack had returned to Munich, where the police were hunting him everywhere to collect an unpaid debt. To the tycoon, this demonstrated Jack's commitment to honoring his deals. However, to be cautious, he still sent the woman to stay close to Jack and monitor his progress. In another development, Larry killed his wife after being betrayed by her. He then used Allison's phone to text Bianca and lure her into a meeting. When Bianca arrived, Larry emerged from the shadows and attacked her with a dagger. After a fierce struggle, Bianca managed to escape along the riverbank. She happened to encounter some passers-by, preventing Larry from striking again. While calling headquarters for backup, Bianca also lured Larry toward a bridge ahead. Headquarters contacted Vince, the closest agent, to assist Bianca. Together with the police, they cornered Larry by the riverbank. However, Larry reacted quickly, leaping onto a small boat passing by and making his escape. When Bianca and the police reached Allison's house, they found her already dead. Larry, now a fugitive, clearly had no intention of letting Bianca go. He had someone track down Bianca's home address and used her daughter to try to force her into submission. Unexpectedly, Bianca shot him in the thigh. She didn't kill Larry, instead intending to extract information from him about the whereabouts of the gunsmith Norman. On an island in Tandestonia, the world's richest billionaire Elon Musk was informed by his subordinates that someone had hired a professional assassin to target him. However, Musk clearly had no intention of canceling the events planned for this trip. He wanted to see if the professional assassin could breach the island's thick layers of security to kill him. But Jack had no intention of going to the island to assassinate him. After arriving in Tallinn, Jack headed to the exhibition center where Musk would hold his event, searching for a suitable location to carry out the assassination. In the first phase, he infiltrated and accessed behind the soundproof walls. Not long after, he reached the top partition area of the exhibition center. From there, he could see the main stage through a gap. At that moment, the floor beneath his feet suddenly gave way and he almost fell. Grabbing hold of a cable, he managed to save himself. However, during the climb back up, his phone slipped from his pocket and fell. After the event ended, Jack didn't see anyone returning the phone. Since that phone was his only means of communication with his employer, he couldn't afford to lose it. He found his phone in the middle of the stage. Before leaving, he memorized the name of the security guard, thinking he might need it when executing the assassination later. However, when Jack opened the door to his hotel room, he discovered an uninvited guest inside. Jackalside turned around and locked the door behind him. He walked toward the woman, staring at her with a murderous look. The woman, unfazed, said that Jack had taken their $20 million but acted recklessly in Munich.
If I don't deliver, if you don't deliver, it will take extreme measures. You do not want to make enemies of these people. They're more powerful than you know. If you don't believe me, just ask Norman Stoke.
The woman sent to monitor Jack had no intention of interfering with his freedom. She said she would stay in Tallinn until he completed his mission, and if he needed anything related to the task, he could reach out to her. As they parted ways, Jack suddenly turned to glance at a group of elderly people fishing nearby. Among them was a woman with her leg in a cast, still engrossed in her fishing. Back at the hotel, Jack logged into a secure website to contact Norman, informing him that he needed a special gun. Norman sent Jack his phone number, and shortly after, Jack called him. Jack explained that he needed the help of a weapons master like Norman. However, before detailing his request, Jack asked if Norman had encountered anything unusual lately. Norman mentioned that he had dealt with a few uninvited guests recently, but assured Jack that he had taken care of them.
All right, and you're 100% secure now?
100%.
You know I don't like risks.
You know I don't either.
Distance to the target is 75 meters.
Not like you to get that snug.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's my only option.
What are the obstacles?
A metal detector and an ultra-sensitive scanner, but I've got an idea for that.
When you need it.
Well, the job's in 5 days.
Norman said it was a bit difficult because his arm had been injured by those uninvited guests. He even joked that he couldn't wipe his own ass anymore. He admitted he couldn't complete the job alone within 5 days and had no assistance because he didn't trust anyone.
Would you trust me?
Meanwhile, Bianca arrived at the hospital. After ordering all the police officers out of the room, she used a pillow to smother Larry's mouth. After doing this several times, she presented him with a choice. Either they would spare Norman's life or Larry would rot in prison. If he revealed Norman's whereabouts, they would release him so he could handle his wife's funeral arrangements. After several instances of suffocation, Larry finally couldn't take it anymore and told Bianca that Norman was in Budapest. He couldn't remember the exact address, only that it was in a small village a few kilometers from the airport. Norman lived in a white building next to a horse farm, and there was a cafe on the street corner. Back at headquarters, the bald man reported his investigation results to Bianca. Duan was a loner. He paid great attention to detail and was a naturally gifted sniper. His unit specialized in eliminating Taliban leaders, but in 2013 he was killed in an IED attack. Bianca was preparing to travel to Budapest with Vince. For security reasons, she privately met with her superior Osita Halcro to request authorization and logistical support. Meanwhile, Jack had already arrived in Budapest. Norman took him to his personal weapons cache where a wide array of firearms was displayed. Jack shared with Norman his idea of a weapon hidden inside a cast shoe. The cast shoe, made of plastic and polymer, could easily pass through metal detectors. However, since the gun barrel couldn't be made of plastic, they would have to use a lightweight alloy. The two of them began designing the gun parts on the computer, waiting for the 3D printer to produce them. While waiting, Jack asked Norman why his hand was injured. After hesitating for a moment, Norman explained that a group of English-speaking people had come after him in Belarus. A black woman had shot him in the hand. The weapon she used was a Glock 17. Hearing this, Jack grew serious, suspecting that she was from MI6. He didn't want Norman's troubles to interfere with his final mission. Norman claimed he had an informant inside MI6 who would warn him in advance, but Jack still looked deeply concerned.
You're an artist, my friend, and you've always been discreet. But if that changes...
The next day, the gun parts had finished printing. After removing the cast shoe, they could be assembled into a simple sniper rifle. Norman handed Jack a set of car keys and told him to drive to a nearby forest to test the gun. He also warned Jack that the plastic gun body was fragile and would only withstand about 7 or 8 shots. To be safe, Jack should minimize the number of test shots. Jack drove to a forest, hung a watermelon on a tree 75 meters away, and began test firing using plastic bullets to calibrate the rifle's sights. After confirming that everything was functioning properly, he loaded a metal bullet into the barrel. Satisfied with the new weapon after the tests, Jack headed back. On the way, he stopped by a cafe at a street corner for a drink. Suddenly, he noticed Bianca's car circling nearby. It turned out Bianca had located Norman's hideout and called in reinforcements to prepare for an assault, including cutting the power. Worried, Jack called Norman, but he was too drunk to hear his phone ringing. Norman hurriedly deleted the printing history from the computer. At that moment, Bianca and her team burst inside. Learning from past mistakes, Bianca had already arranged for her team to block all exits, easily subduing Norman. However, Norman stubbornly refused to reveal Jack's name. Bianca spotted Jack's backpack nearby and guessed he must be close, lying in wait. Realizing he had been betrayed by Larry, his so-called brother, Norman stood up. At that moment, he took a bullet from Jack meant for Bianca. While Jack was reloading, Bianca quickly took cover and signaled her team outside to surround him. Jack was pushed toward a stable. He mounted a white horse and fled. Bianca drove after him closely until Jack escaped into the forest. When the female driver got out of the car, she was shot, but fortunately she was wearing a bulletproof vest and wasn't seriously injured. Jack's gun had a limited number of shots. Surrounded on all sides, he could only flee in desperation. Finally, he leapt off a cliff into a lake to escape. Shortly after, Jack resurfaced downstream. Rain poured down heavily as he dragged his soaked body into a warehouse to take shelter. However, the warehouse owner discovered him and pointed a gun at his head. Jack tried to resist, but the man struck him with the butt of the gun, knocking him unconscious, and then hung him from the ceiling. While Jack was desperately trying to find a way to escape, the fat man suddenly let him go and even gestured for him to get lost. But just as Jack stood up, the man spotted the sniper rifle hidden in the haystack. It seemed like there was no way out this time. The fat man forced Jack back to his house, ignoring Jack's repeated gestures that he was willing to pay to settle everything. Due to the language barrier, the fat man couldn't understand what Jack was saying, but he clearly heard the word euro. He immediately called his brother.
Elkaptam a pajtába egy köcsögöt. Külföldi? Valami csúcsfegyver van nála, sose láttam még. Szerintem valami pénzről adóvál, de nem értem. De a Lacika nálatok az ért angolul, nem? Lacika!
Coincidentally, among the workers at Gabi's farm, there was someone named Alvaro who knew English. Alvaro came out to talk to Jack. When he realized Jack wanted to settle things with money, he reported it back to Gabi.
Azt mondta, hogy van pénze és fizetne.
Mondom neki, hogy oda megyünk, és hogyha fizet, akkor esetleg el lesz simítva az ügynök.
We come now. You pay. Maybe problem go away.
Gabi immediately grabbed his weapon and prepared to head to his younger brother's farm. But before they could get far, the two were stopped by the police. The officer informed them that a foreign assassin had recently been spotted nearby.
Jár érte jutalom, ha megtaláljuk.
Nehogy a közelébe menjetek.
Hearing this, Gabi instantly knew he was about to get rich. But what he didn't know was that what awaited him was the abyss of death. Because while waiting for his brother, the fat man kept insisting Jack try the bread he had baked himself. Jack was struggling, unable to find a way to escape, when unexpectedly the opportunity presented itself. Just as Jack was packing his things to run, Gabi called the fat man, but there was no answer. Gabi left a message warning his brother to be careful because the foreigner was very dangerous. Little did he know that his brother had already stopped breathing long ago. Jack went outside and climbed into a truck, but no matter what he did, it wouldn't start. With no other choice, he switched to another one. He had just inserted the key when Gabi burst in. While Gabi and his companion went into the house to search, Jack quickly started the engine. The roar of the engine echoed loudly. Gabi rushed out of the house and pointed his gun at Jack, firing. In that life or death moment, Jack finally got the truck started. But because he couldn't lift his head to see the road, the vehicle crashed into the curb and got stuck in a pile of tires. Seeing this, Gabi lunged forward, intending to avenge his younger brother. But when he opened the truck door, Jackal had already vanished. A gunshot immediately rang out from beneath the vehicle. Jack stood up coldly under Alvaro's horrified gaze. Without hesitation, he finished off Gabi. Alvaro mustered all his courage to confront Jack, but his gun was loaded with blanks. There was no way he could fight back. His instincts told him to surrender, and so he obediently became a hostage. If Jack hadn't needed a driver and translator, Alvaro would have been shot long ago. With the muzzle of a gun pressed against him, Alvaro trembled as he drove, watching terrified birds scatter past the window. Jack suddenly felt a pang of regret for accepting this $100 million job. But there was no turning back now. His only choice was to try and survive this desperate situation. He snatched Alvaro's phone, hesitated for a moment, then decided to call his wife, confessing that he was in deep trouble. His voice trembled with emotion as he told her this might be their last phone call and asked her to take good care of their son.
Anyway, I just wanted to hear your voice because I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be making it back.
Charles, you're scaring me.
What's wrong?
Charles?
I'm so sorry.
It should have been a heartbreaking and hopeless conversation, but to Jack's surprise, his wife didn't panic. Instead, she asked him directly where he was and what she could do to help. Her words reignited a flicker of hope in Jack. He immediately asked her to bring him a suitcase. She didn't hesitate at all, still believing that her husband was just a normal corporate agent, simply hoping he would complete the mission and come home safely. After the call ended, Alvaro drove Jack into the city. Listening to the radio broadcasting news of his manhunt, watching police cars rush past with sirens blaring, Jack fell into deep thought. Elsewhere, Bianca received the report and arrived at the crime scene at the farm. Police informed her that they had found numerous fingerprints matching those discovered at Norman's hideout, enough evidence to prove that the fugitive was Jack. As Bianca was preparing to resume the chase, she got a call from her superior. He ordered her to return to headquarters immediately. The mission to capture Jack had been elevated to top priority, and the operation was now officially named Anubis. They wanted her back to lead it. Although the timing couldn't have been worse, the order was non-negotiable. Bianca reluctantly agreed, but her departure inadvertently gave Jack the chance to escape. As a top assassin, Jack should never have shown mercy, but Alvaro's words ended up saving his life.
You have good man face.
Say that again?
You have good man face.
That sentence kept echoing in Jack's mind, bringing back memories of the past. He had ruthlessly taken countless lives. On one mission, his superiors had even ordered him to massacre an entire innocent village. From that moment on, he knew he was no longer a good man. Jack told Alvaro to stop the truck under a bridge and ordered him to place both hands on the steering wheel. Jack hesitated, unsure whether he should pull the trigger. But when he saw a photo of Alvaro's family on the phone and thought of his own wife and child, he ultimately broke the sacred rule of an assassin.
I know where you live. If anything happens to me, my colleagues will come to your house and they will kill your wife and your child in front of you. So when the police ask about me, you are going to tell them that you never saw my face and you never heard my voice. Can I trust you? Yes. Can I trust you? Yes.
By the time Alvaro came to his senses, Jack was already gone. He let out a loud laugh like a man who had just escaped death. Meanwhile, Jack melted into the crowd and called his wife, telling her not to contact him anymore, just to wait for an email. After hanging up, he slipped the phone into a stranger's backpack and walked into an internet cafe where he logged onto a secure website to contact his handler. The woman informed him that due to the chaos in Budapest, their superiors had begun to lose faith in him. Jack firmly replied that he would soon be back and would keep his promise. But if they dared to withhold his payment, then they'd better be ready for war. The woman asked Jack if he needed any help. Jack said he could handle it on his own. At that moment, an email from his wife arrived, and he immediately sent her the hotel link. Upon receiving the message, his wife hurriedly grabbed her suitcase and left the airport. The two met at the hotel. Although she still held some resentment in her heart, seeing the remorseful look in her husband's eyes, she chose to forgive him. Without saying much, Jack quickly began to change his appearance. In the suitcase his wife had brought were the tools necessary for his disguise. She silently stood by, wanting to learn more about her husband's work. Jack didn't stop her, but instead began performing a series of steps. Under her astonished gaze, he transformed into an old man. The two of them went to the airport together. The security staff seemed not to notice them. After saying goodbye to his wife, Jackal left alone. At that moment, Bianca and her partner were also on their way back to headquarters and happened to pass by him. However, after Jack boarded the plane, the flight was delayed and hadn't taken off yet. A short while later, he was surprised to see Bianca and her partner also boarding the plane. It turned out they weren't returning to headquarters. Bianca's superior had received intelligence that the richest man in the world would arrive in Talent in 4 days to launch a new software he had developed, and Jack was certain to be there. Therefore, the superior ordered Bianca to reroute and head to Talent instead. But fate played a cruel joke. Bianca ended up sitting right in front of Jack. After arriving, Jack saw that they had taken the same taxi going in his direction and even checked into the same hotel. As he stepped into his room, Jack suddenly realized that this mission was going to be extremely difficult. While removing his disguise, he began to consider whether he should change the plan. But before he could come up with anything, the doorbell rang. 2 police officers appeared at the door. They said there had been a robbery on the upper floor and they were checking each room. Jack calmly explained that he had just arrived and hadn't noticed anything unusual. After inspecting his passport and finding nothing suspicious, the male officer prepared to leave. However, the female officer felt that something wasn't right. Her intuition told her that the man standing before her was no ordinary person. She asked Jack for his phone number and called it right in front of him. It wasn't until she heard the ringtone ring from the room that she finally let go of her suspicion and left with her colleague. Jack's instincts as a killer told him that this place was no longer safe. He immediately dialed a number. It was the security staff member who had helped him find his phone the day before. Jack had noticed